After spending a few days driving basically south along I-65, visiting with some future Louisville Cardinal football players and doing a few one-on-one interviews, I found myself just 30 minutes north of Dauphin Island. A great place and home to one of my favorite hikes at the Audubon Bird Sanctuary along the 14-mile long barrier island, Dauphin Island, along the Gulf shores of Alabama. Been here a few times, and this is one of my favorite hikes. It is actually a national recreation trail. So what's that mean exactly? What's a national recreation trail? Well, there's a little over 1,300 of these currently nationwide, as well as in D.C. and Puerto Rico. And what it is, it's a designation that promotes some of our country's highest caliber trails. So there you go. It's got a designation to say it's a pretty nice place to hike. There's about 3 miles of trails in here. It includes maritime forests, swamps, marshes. It's got a lake with an alligator or two in there, as well as a beach along the Gulf Coast. So great place to hike. And you know what? Basketball's on my mind. So Louisville basketball is 11 games in to the Pat Kelsey era. What are we thinking? Cardinals are 6-5 after those 11 games. What's our thoughts? I'm going to share a few of mine. It's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster ride in just those short 11 games. So what are we doing? Let's hike about it. And what a tough start. I mean, you don't just lose a guy to a broken arm for a number of weeks into the season, right out of the gate. You don't just lose a key point guard to a shoulder injury for the rest of the season, before the season really even gets going. And you don't lose a key forward, a spark plug, a key contributor in many ways, to an ACL injury that knocks him out for the rest of the season early on in the season. Those things don't happen to one program in just a couple weeks. Unfortunately, they do at Louisville. And Pat Kelsey has had to continually adjust. What was once a deep team is now a team with a very short bench. And as we saw against Kentucky, you start getting in foul trouble, somebody else gets dinged up, and that bench disappears real quickly. But one thing we keep seeing from this team is they compete. They don't quit. They are determined, and they back that up. Yeah, they're 6-5. They've also played a pretty tough schedule to this point. They've had some impressive wins, had some head scratching, had some learning moments. And the great thing about this Pat Kelsey club, this veteran club, is they clearly are learning from moments. They're growing in the moment. And while they have already been dealt 5 losses in the 11 games, the way they are performing, and knock on wood, barring any other crazy circumstances, this team's going to earn some of these wins. I mean, they've got some impressive wins coming on their docket, without question. You have to say a lot of that stems from Pat Kelsey's persona. We've heard it since he's arrived. That determination, that will, and you hear it in his players, and you see it on the court. The reflection of that certainly comes across as part of the personality for his team. And running that team with point guard Chucky Hepburn, and my goodness. What can be said about Chucky Hepburn? I mean, you hear it in the post games from the opposing coaches pointing straight to, hey, we got to do something about 24 on both ends of the court. Not only can he put up some big points, as we saw multiple times this year already, but Dropped 26 to lead Louisville against Kentucky, to go along with 5 assists and 5 rebounds. But Chucky gets after it defensively. He's a menace, disruptor. And his determination, certainly you could see it on his jersey. You can see it sitting on his shoulders during the games. He's like, let's go, puts everything on his shoulders. Certainly a perfect point guard for Pat Kelsey's first squad as the Louisville head coach. Chucky's been an all ACC performer to this point. If you want to know my opinion, you see the way this team competes against Duke, against Kentucky. You saw them throttle Indiana, beat West Virginia in overtime, play tough against Oklahoma, learning moments against Tennessee, and winning other games that they're supposed to win. And you can't help but wonder, and you hate to throw this out, but what if? What if he didn't have those 3 significant injuries? 2 for the season. And you think about, what if you had 1, 2, or all 3 of those guys against Duke, against Oklahoma, against Kentucky, and seeing their performance and their effort in those games being shorthanded? Yeah, what if? W's? It's hard to argue against it. But here's the cool thing. While it's easy for me and others to say, man, what if? But the cool thing is, instead of the team going, man, what if? They continue to roll up their sleeves, so to speak, and get to work and continue with that determination that they had before the season started. Like, hey, we're bringing Louisville basketball back. Okay, we've had some setbacks now. We'll readjust, and we're going to continue to bring Louisville basketball back. Like I said, this effort is going to be rewarded with some wins. What about Terrence Edwards? A guy that came in with high accolades, Sun Belt Player of the Year, and just seemed to struggle to get his footing. But in the last 3 games, averaging 22 points a game, scoring over 20 in each of them. Seems like he's starting to become one of those go-to guys that was needed from the get-go. Good to see Terrence Edwards becoming a consistent, legit threat on the offensive end. Noah Waterman. Talk about someone who's had a tough go. Known as a shooter coming in, has certainly been struggling from deep. The loss of Cason Pryor certainly did not help. Kind of pushed him into a bit of a different role. But despite the struggles and not being able to find the bottom of the net with any consistency, he just keeps giving his effort. And we saw him against Duke basically disappeared for almost the bulk of the second half. Against Kentucky, back in the starting lineup, continues to struggle from deep, continues to give the effort. You can see he and Pat Kelsey interacting during timeouts, and you get the box score at the end of the game. He's got a double-double, 12 points, 12 rebounds. And that's what you want to see when you're struggling especially when you're a big like he is that likes to play on all spots on the floor. You gotta crash the boards. You have to make impacts in other ways. Clearly everybody's excited for the future of freshman Kenai Ruths. You can see it in spurts, and man, I really like it when he's hanging around the rim. Exciting things happen when Kenai Ruths is hanging around the rim, without question. Looking forward to seeing him continue to grow, and now with the shorthanded team, that process needs to kind of speed up a little bit. I think we're going to continue to see the growth of Kenai Ruths, but as a first-year player, probably a little bit of a roller coaster here and there. But my anticipation is by the time we're seeing the college basketball season approach March, that he's being described as one of those, hey, you're not a freshman anymore. And I think we'll see him become more consistent with his play at both ends of the floor over the coming weeks through the winter and as spring approaches. So my expectations for the Louisville basketball team before the season tipped off, I was one of those that said, would like to see Louisville. My expectation for this year alone, is it's part of the rebuilding process. Get yourself on the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble. Felt pretty good about that until Tennessee came to the Yum Center and smacked Louisville around. Confidence certainly dropped. The impressive thing is just the opposite happened with the team. They took that extra time, got more focused, and we saw them a much better Louisville team down in the Bahamas, reaching the championship game of the Battle for Atlantis, just roasting Indiana, something you just love to see. Then the injury to Cason Pryor, but this team doesn't quit. They just keep competing. And even though my confidence level dropped after Tennessee and then rose again during the battle for Atlantis, it certainly took a huge hit when Pryor suffered his season-ending injury. But as we see these Cardinals compete against Duke, and now we've seen them compete against Kentucky, we're not going to continue to with the what if. I'm going to start believing like this team does, and they're going to start getting some wins that they deserve, that they earn through their work and their play. But confidence level is what I'm trying to say is continuing to rise again. This is a team that competes. My biggest concern is exhaustion and unforeseen circumstances, because we've seen already at this point that you can almost count on unforeseen circumstances. Hopefully Louisville has had its share and is full of unforeseen circumstances for this season. But I do like the direction the program is going, and I think we're going to continue to see exciting things happen, and I think we're going to start to see some wins happen. Yeah, the losses are going to continue, but some wins, some impressive wins are on the way. This is a team that's not going to compete, not going to stop competing, and we're going to see them continuing to compete as March approaches. Through 11 games, not where we thought we would be. We also didn't anticipate some of these factors that have certainly impacted the team. But after 11 games, you got to be proud of their effort. Man, I didn't see any gators. Let's go to the beach. And again, I think that effort is going to eventually turn into wins. And you look at the schedule, and it's air quotes not as tough moving ahead So they've got to start picking up the wins to see if they can get on the right side of the bubble. Hey, thanks again for going hiking with Michael McCammon. If you liked what you saw, give me a like, a share, and a subscribe. Appreciate it.